Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it, and shalom. Welcome to the Big Daddy Liberty Show. That's right, the Big Daddy Liberty Show that comes to you every Wednesday at 7 p.m. This is your midweek chat show with me, Sihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. Hello, people. Welcome to it. The show, just for full disclosure, is of course pre-recorded. You can see the sun is up, and it's pre-recorded because right now I'm probably on the road, probably making my way sort of halfway from Cape Town to Johannesburg. So if you're in Johannesburg, just look out for me. I will be in that part of the world in what will amount to a few hours, hopefully, God willing. Guys, welcome to the show. I have a very interesting one tonight, insofar as there is an issue that I have been talking about for a very long time, if you are a fan of the show, and that is essentially the threat that politicians in this country, the political elites who are broadly on the left of the political spectrum, in other words, people who believe all things should be controlled or be in the hands of the state, those people are pushing a piece of legislation right now, which is perhaps one of the single greatest threats to your ability as a faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African to be able to say you own something, whether that thing is a piece of land or the phone you might be watching me from, or your pension funds, your savings, even the wallet in your pocket. They are coming for that insofar as proposing a policy or a bill, a piece of law called the Expropriation Bill. Expropriation, of course, being the buzzword in this country, with politicians wanting to give themselves the power to be able to confiscate something from you without having to even compensate you from that, i.e. theft. I have a very interesting guest with me today who will help me unpack the threats that this bill poses to you. And we're going to show you exactly what this bill and how this bill, will achieve dispossessing you of land, and how the political elites will actually go about doing this. And we'll show you that in 5 easy steps. I've got a video that I'm going to play you, a short video, it's about 3 minutes, from the Institute of Race Relations, who are fighting this bill as we speak, and they need your help. But a lot of you are maybe still unaware as to how the expropriation bill actually even affects you. Does it really target you? Some of you even ask the question. So I want to play the short clip and let you see exactly what the 5 easy steps will be for politicians and the political elite when they're looking to come after your property. Watch this, and after this, I bring my guest on, Gabriel Crouse from the IRR.
How to lose your property in 5 all too easy steps. A quick explanation of how the expropriation bill would empower the state while trampling on your property rights. If the expropriation bill, currently making its way through the parliamentary process, becomes a law, property rights in South Africa will never be the same again, and neither will our economy or our country. So, in terms of this bill, how will the expropriation process actually work? Step 1. An expropriating authority, like a municipality or a government department, seeking to expropriate property must start by investigating the property and negotiating for its purchase with the owner. Step 2. If no agreement between the owner and the authority is reached, the authority may issue a notice of its intention to expropriate. In this document, the authority invites the property owner to make their case for why they should keep it, or what amount of compensation should be paid. While the authority is required by the expropriation bill to listen to the owner making their case, it is under absolutely no obligation to respond or explain their reasoning should they reject what the owner has said. Step 3. Once the authority has heard the owner out, it can go ahead and issue a notice of expropriation. Under this notice, both ownership and the right to possess the property will automatically pass to the municipality on the date set out in the notice. The date for the transfer of ownership could be a mere week after the service of the notice, as the only time limit in the bill is that this date must not be earlier than the date of service of the notice. The right to possess the property could pass to the municipality within another week. Effectively, the authority will be able to act as judge and jury in its own cause, it will have the power to decide that the expropriation is in the public interest, or that a pittance or nil amount of compensation is, quote, just and equitable, end quote. Step 4. A property owner who can afford a lawyer may seek mediation or apply directly to the courts to challenge the validity of an expropriation, whether it is really in the public interest, for example, and the amount of compensation offered, if it is truly just and equitable. However, most people will lack the necessary resources to mount legal challenges. They will also find this particularly difficult to do if they have already lost ownership and possession of their homes or other key assets like shares, savings, or a pension. Expropriated owners will also bear the onus of proving that the expropriation is invalid or the compensation inadequate. Step 5. If the property owner's efforts against the expropriation fail to convince the court, they will have to pay not only their own legal costs, but also many of the state's costs as well. And there you have it, from property owner to not, in 5 all too easy steps, thanks to the Expropriation Bill. That's if it becomes law. But together, we can kill the bill. Visit irr.org.za to protect property rights.
Well, there you have it. I hope that was easy to understand, and exactly you get to see how the Expropriation Bill is literally targeting you. It isn't just about farmland, and it definitely isn't about land reform, because that's the big lie that the politicians have told in this country in order to try and sell this policy, to try and sell this effective almost unilateral power to be able to steal from you, the faith, flag, and family and freedom type South African, and to give to them, the politicians, the state, and the political elites. That is essentially the bottom line here. But let me not waffle away on this. Let me bring my guest on, someone who I think will add the very sort of context that will allow you to understand this issue in greater depth. I'm just going to bring him onto camera now. I'm talking, of course, about Gabriel Crouse, who's from the Institute of Race Relations. Gabriel, hello, good evening, and welcome to the stream.
Hi, Cecily. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent, brother. Just a reminder to the viewers, what do you do at the IRR again and the Daily Friend?
Well, yeah, I write for the Daily Friend. I have my own podcast, Two Crickets and a Thorn Tree, with Nicholas Lorimer. I go on the Daily Friend podcast. And I suppose the key role I try to play is getting out into the rural heartland as much as possible, listening to people, telling their stories from the grassroots.
Absolutely, brother. And welcome to the Big Daddy Liberty Show. I will put a link to all of the platforms. Excuse me. Whoa, sounded like Porky Pig there. I'll put a link to all the platforms that you can find the writing and the work of Gabriel in the descriptor of this video. But Gabriel, let's get straight into it, brother, because, you know, I think anybody who's watching that video maybe hadn't before seeing that easy 5 steps that, you know, sort of clearly explain how the Expropriation Bill will empower municipalities and really the political elites. I keep saying, you know, municipalities, but really it's the political elites who are giving themselves this power. You know, maybe someone didn't understand this before, and, you know, you guys are opening people's eyes to this threat now, aren't you?
Yeah, that's the mission. I think, you know, the bill itself, as it's drafted, is, I don't know, 25 pages long. I've read it a few times. It's full of legalese. It's just not the kind of thing that someone who's got a job and is working flipping hard to keep their lives together, tend to their family, tend to their community, has the time to read. And so that can make it very abstract and like a far away idea. And so what we've really tried to do is make it concrete and give you an understanding of what stands between you and theft, dispossession, if this bill becomes a law. And the common line is the courts will stand between you and that. And you know, the courts will have your back. And the key thing to realize is that the courts only really enter the process in step 4. Step 3 is when you've already lost your stuff.
Right.
So how exactly do you think that you're going to be able to defend yourself there's no court appointee for this, paying for your own lawyers, if you've already lost your home, if you've already lost your business, if you've already lost your savings, where the government's the only entity that can invent money. For you and I, when you don't have money, you don't have something to pay a lawyer with to get your money back. And it's a simple problem. It's a problem that hasn't been, I think, fairly communicated by a lot of my colleagues in South African journalism. I think sometimes people just don't understand it. I think sometimes they hear the political spin and they believe it, and they don't really do the hard work of digging underneath it. I think some people are really ideologues who know this and who like it, and know that you don't like it, and so they don't want to say it too frankly. Who fits into which box, I don't know. But what I know for certain is that it hasn't been fairly communicated, and that's part of the reason that there hasn't been more pushback. Certainly there has been. The institute alone has raised over 200,000 signatures. You and I went to Parliament to take some of those signatures to the union buildings. That was a great adventure. And we've raised more, and we're trying to raise more, as many as we can before the end of the month. And if I can just say why this matters. Together we can kill the bill. That is a true statement. If half of South Africa suddenly signs on, we can stop this thing dead in its tracks. But that might not happen. You can't make that happen. I can't make that happen. We can only try and persuade a few people. And you listening at home, you can submit your pushback against this bill, and you can try and persuade a few people too. Now, the difference between a few more and a few more is not necessarily that it'll be able to stop the bill. But what it does do is that it puts another arrow in our quiver once the bill becomes a law, to challenge it, to challenge its constitutionality, to challenge the process, to challenge it technically. Has this bill actually been fairly represented to the people? Have the people really agreed to it? Or has this been done by sleight of hand tricks and theatrics and legerdemain and misrepresentation, circus kind of organized community conventions where people who want to speak out against it are terrified and hounded away, and people who come to speak about it are given scripts? We have evidence of this stuff, and you can be part of that evidence. You can give us your voice, your signature, your authority as a citizen of this country, to be part of the evidence that we don't want this, that we don't want to live in a chieftainship, in a kingdom, in some kind of authoritarian monarchy where the difference between you keeping your stuff and losing your stuff is the whim, is the privilege endowed upon you by some political elite who might like you, might not like you.
For me, and what I want to do here, Gabriel, in the short time that we have, is I want to throw at you the common rebuttals and the common responses, the pushback you get from often is what I like to call the broad coalition, a crooked coalition of the trendy lefties in this country, the elites, both the political types and sometimes even the media elites who are also leftist in nature, who listen to these things and then clap for them whilst presenting a facade of being objective, of course. You'll find that usually in the commentariats in the mainstream media. But anyway, let me not, as I say in Zulu, I'm not there tonight. But I want to throw the usual pushback lines, and I want you to debunk and dismantle the usual arguments. So we'll often be told, Gabriel, especially by the trendy lefty types, no, you right wingers, or of course are opposed to this legislation because it's progressive and it's pro-poor. It defends the poor and gives them the land, we're often told. How would you push back against that common trope?
Well, that's very easy. The most anti-poor thing you can do is give the government with guns, those authorities, the right to take stuff. Now, there's two reasons for this. The first reason is the easiest people for them to target are going to be the poor.
Exactly.
If you look at the cases of expropriation without compensation that have already happened de facto, I covered Charles Nkumalo, Walter and William Mnyandu, out in Ukutuleni, rural KZN, poor people. They had their land taken from them. The mayor, the police, everyone rubber stamped that. if you look at David Rakhase, if you look at Ivan Klutter, if you look at the sort of standout cases that we've already identified of people being dispossessed with de facto government, either by government action directly or with its blessing, they have been the poor people. It's much harder to expropriate a billionaire because he can lawyer up and get his team going. So the people that are going to be the hardest hit are going to be the most vulnerable. That's one sense in which this is anti-poor. Another sense in which it's anti-poor is if you've got money. I mean, think about Ramaphosa's value add proposition. He comes in to the presidency in February 2018. He says, here's what I'm going to do, guys. I'm going to get rid of the Zuma factor. Now we've got the Ramaphosa factor. Everyone's going to love it. Ramaphoria. We're going to go around the world and say, look how good I look in a suit. Look how much great business experience I have. Invest in South Africa Inc. We are going to take money away from investors without compensation. And that's what's going to make us a more attractive investment destination. This is absurd. This is absurd. Poor people in this country that I come across, they want a job. They don't. Handouts last a day. Having a job, having a value add proposition means you get material, reliable, robust reward, and it means you've got dignity because you're not a taker, you're a maker. That requires investment. Investment requires security. Security both against crime and against dispossession. So you take away that and you take away more jobs. Simple as that. In those two simple ways, this is very anti-poor.
Then, of course, the usual, the favorite refuge of the leftist scoundrel is to pivot to race. Once you're able to show them that they actually don't stand with the poor, that they are the status quo, which is very much the state and the political elites, they then pivot to race to try and shut down certain people. So you'll often hear the following argument. Well, of course, you whites will say that because you whites are settlers and land thieves. How dare you try and speak out against this policy, which is trying to take the land and give it back to the poor and marginalized blacks. Again, how do we respond to this? Because the implication is this policy is pro-black.
Yeah. Well, look, some people think I'm an alien. I'm a South African. I've got the ID to prove it, and I've got a constitution behind me. But here's the point. If the government was so keen on giving people the dignity of ownership and the autonomy, which is quite dangerous to a government, hey? Independent, autonomous people, maybe they like you, maybe they don't. If they really wanted to empower people, why is it that for the last 25 years, the government has held on to title deeds over land that 17, 18, 19 million people sleep on?
Exactly.
That's land the government already has, that it already has not given title deed to people for.
That's right.
That doesn't seem like a government to me that's particularly keen on creating independence, on creating liberty, freedom, prosperity, and so on. That seems to me like a government, one that I see many times across history. Soviet Russia, its satellite states, Mao's China, a lot of South America in the 20th century. That seems like a government that's afraid of its people, that wants to keep people in the corner, keep the boots of the government on their necks and feed them crumbs day by day so that they live between fear and dependency. That's the pattern that I'm seeing. Now, if you want to break that pattern, what do you need to do? You need to give people title deeds. What does a title deed mean? It means you cannot take my stuff. You can drive me out of my house. You can try to do whatever you want to do. But if I can get myself to a police station, or if you kill me, my children can get themselves to the police station. The police station is going to see that title deed. They're going to see it's got a little address. It's got a description. It's got everything written there. The police will go and drive out whoever has dispossessed me. That's what a title deed is. It is a promissory note from government to defend your house, your business, your assets. What does a title deed mean exactly in a country that says, here's the police's job to make sure that if the government wants to take your stuff, it can take it before you even get to court? That turns a title deed into what the founding fathers of the American state called a parchment protection. Something that is literally just a piece of paper. It can't stop a spear. It can't stop a bullet. It definitely can't stop
a political elite from coming to dispossess you. So the idea of giving people title deeds and undermining the value of a title deed at the same time is so absurd that, to its credit, almost I could say, the ANC hasn't dared propose it. They're not promising to erode property rights and spread property. They're just promising to erode property rights. So I'm totally with anyone who thinks that the sins of apartheid need concrete addressing. And the original sin, in a sense, of the South African state, as in the first bit of legislation that the South African government passed that was heinous, was the 1913 Land Act. And that act precisely did what this act is doing. It changed the rules of property so that it's not a freedom, it's a gift. It's a gift that the government can give and then take away with the other hand. And it's very important not to repeat the same mistake. Unfortunately, that's what we set on doing.
Absolutely. The final argument, of course, once you rightly and ably dispel the notion that this is an economic argument weighted towards the poor, once you show that actually they don't stand with the poor, and then once you dispel the other myth, that somehow they are pro-black or that they care about, fixing historical imbalances, once you dispel that myth that the Expropriation Bill won't do any of those two things, then they move to what really is the final refuge of the scoundrel. It really is. They'll say, well, why are you guys piping up now when South Africa already has an Expropriation Act? That's Act 63 of 1975. That was, given to us by the apartheid regime. And, you liberals weren't saying anything about that back then. But why are you complaining now when a black government is doing it? Again, how does one push back on that?
Okay, firstly, the Expropriation Bill of 1975 is not good enough. It should be replaced. Replacing a bad thing with a bad thing is just stupid. Secondly, the Institute of Race Relations was founded in 1929 as an umbrella organization to gather up those organizations which, after the 1913 Land Act, were furious with the government and wanted to push back against the attack on property rights that was driven by an evil and stupid race narrative that black people shouldn't be allowed to be owning things next to white people, and that white people shouldn't be allowed to own things next to black people, and in particular that black people should really not be owning very much. It was a very, very bad idea, and that's what started the Institute of Race Relations 90 years ago. In 1975, the Institute pushed back against that. For the last 14 years, we've been pushing back against the Expropriation Bill in its current formation, the idea of expropriation without compensation. For the last 30 years, we've been pushing the idea of spreading title through the former Bantustan so that people who were oppressed there by a wicked and stupid government could stand a chance to not live with a boot on one neck and crumbs being fed into their mouths by another hand of government, and instead stand on their own 2 feet, make their stuff, as you say, tend to their families, tend to their faith, follow that, love the flag, and live a life of freedom. That has been our argument from day one. And it is an amazing thing that this country was at times so close to forcing its government to take it seriously. In fact, we've had great strides in that direction, and then we've had terrible backslides. And when the backslide comes, people think that history started yesterday. That good South Africans have been, absent from the debate. They haven't been absent. They've been deliberately ignored, sidelined, slandered, and ostracized, really. And why is that? Why is that? It doesn't suit the people of this country, but it suits the power brokers. If you live as a politician in a universe where people are going to reward you or punish you on the basis of how well their lives are doing, on how well they can read the policy sort of layout going forward, then you have to be very good at your job if you want to keep your job. But if you can keep the people of South Africa on a short leash, keep them too desperate and too hungry and too terrified to really think about the bigger picture, to really think about the day after tomorrow, rather than just the grant that I can get at the end of the month, then I suppose all you have to do is keep the boot on the neck and keep a few crumbs flowing through, keep your patronage network intact, and then you can stay in power. You don't have to stand the harder test that you face when you've got a fully liberated population challenging the government at every election, and not just at every election, on every given Sunday, on every given Monday. Every time a new decision is made, you have to confront a confident, liberal thinking, independent-minded, independent, property-wise empowered population that's not going to be ready to take your nonsense. I don't know about you, but if I didn't care about human beings, if I just cared about my own power, I know exactly what kind of country I would want to be in charge of. And it's not a country full of property owners. It's a country full of desperate of desperados. And that unfortunately is what deliberately, accidentally, who knows how, but that's the situation we find ourselves in. And it's very important to push back against it now, because it's not going to get easier. This battle is going to last for the next 10 years probably, and it's only going to get more difficult, because once you give political elites more of a sniff, more of a whiff of the ability not just to tax flow of income, but to actually expropriate stock of wealth to plug their deficits, whether it's at a municipal level, national level, or wherever, whether it's by taking land or prescribing assets, whatever the mechanism is. Once you affirm that at a parliamentary level, and they start getting a taste of how well that works to fatten the patronage network even further, it's going to become even harder to push back against it. Absolutely. It's only going to get harder, and it's only going to get more important. So not, the time to join the fight is yesterday, and if you didn't do that, join it now.
Absolutely. And speaking, as we must conclude, Gabriel, speaking about how people can join the fight, the window for public comment is closing fast. It's the final day is the 28th of February. That's only 4 days away, dear viewer. And the Institute of Race Relations is running the #KillTheBill campaign. Gabriel, how do people get involved and get their voice in with you guys?
Great. Go to irr.org.za. First thing you'll see is the Kill the Bill sort of do that. Click on that, sign your name. We will put you on our books and submit that to Parliament for you. Have a look at what we say. Make sure that you agree. And I recommend that you go elsewhere too. Dear South Africa, Free State Agriculture. There's plenty of other groups that have been pushing. Free State Agriculture has got some very interesting proposals. Go and visit them, spread your voice, and then once you've submitted, tell a friend that you've submitted. Tell a family member that you've submitted. Ask them to do the same. This really is. This is a weekend. This battle is going to continue forever, but this submission process is just a weekend. Give it half an hour of your time. Give it 2 minutes of your time, and that'll make a difference.
Gabriel Crouse, of course, is from the Institute of Race Relations, a writer and contributor to the Daily Friend. Gabriel, thanks for your time.
Sihle, it's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Awesome. And that right there was Gabriel Crouse from the IRR. Pertinent points that he was making. Guys, get involved. Get your voice out. Don't sit in your little hooky complaining and moaning. Get up and do something. Win your neighbors on these arguments. And let's build a coalition, a broad coalition of the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African that pushes back against the bad ideas from the political elites. Do not be the sheep. Be the very guard dog that looks after your rights and your liberties. With that being said, thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. If you want to contribute to the show, all of those details are in the descriptor of this video. I really do appreciate it. You are helping me get around the country and launch some of the campaigns that are now firmly on the way under the BDL flag. So look out for that. And with that being said, thanks for watching this episode of the Big Daddy Liberty Show. A reminder, as I always do at the end of every show, for you to never trust a commie.